Hello and welcome to Cloud Native TV. This is lgtm, the show and series that will show you how to contribute to cloud native projects. Hello and welcome. Today on LGTM, we are taking a look at the Tremor project, and I am joined by two fantastic guests, potentially three. We're still waiting to find out what's going to happen with that. Can we start off with a little bit of an introduction, please? Let's start on the bottom left. We'll start with you, Matthias, and then we'll move over.
Yeah, hi. I'm Matthias. I'm working at the Tremor team, Tremor core team, so to say. I'm basically working at Wafer, so Wafer is sponsoring our open source work at Tremor and open sourced it. Yeah, I'm basically doing 100% Rust all day, and it's a lot of fun. And yeah, we want to show you how to contribute.
Thank you. Dark?
Dara?
Also working full-time at Wayfair on open source and Tremor. Interesting enough, it was through a conference in Berlin. What was it, about 2 years ago now, Matthias?
Yeah,
Where Matthias
almost.
found us. We were announcing the project as open source. And in the fullness of time, he actually joined us full-time to work on the project. So we met through community. And Heinz and I also met through the Erlang community many, many years ago. So a lot of the origins of the project, even though it started inside a large e-commerce organization, actually came from community and relationship built through open source. Heinz, unfortunately, is trying to figure out his audience. Hopefully he'll be here soon.
All right, thank you both for introducing yourselves. So before we begin, there's a little bit of housekeeping. This is an official CNCF event, so the code of conduct is in action. The gist of it is, please be nice and respectful to myself, to the co-presenters, and to everyone in the chat. Also, KubeCon is 1 month away, KubeCon North America. So if you want to check that out, tickets are available. Go get involved. All right, so for anyone who's watching who's not familiar with Tremor, can we give a little bit of a TLDR of what it is, and then we'll get started with today's session.
Yeah. Dara, do you want?
Sure. So in a nutshell, Tremor is a general purpose event processing engine. So we are generally used in production to ship or distribute data from A to B. Traditionally, in terms of our production use cases, this has been log shipping at scale, the shipping metrics, and more recently, we're looking at the search domain. So we're indexing and elementizing documents for contribution into downstream search engines, and we're doing that on a transactional basis with multiple downstream indexing engines that we are transactionally contributing data to. So we're pretty much focused around the event processing, the normalization, cleansing, and the enriching of data as it flows and streams through the system. Our primary purpose is to do this with a high quality of service, and at scale, this can mean very different things for very different use cases. So we also, and this is not an explicit goal or not something we try to improve as a priority, we also support subsets of complex event processing and other distributed event-based systems. Our primary goal is shipping data. Heinz, can we hear you? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Wow.
Yes, we can. Happy day.
This is amazing.
So did you manage to get it working in Linux?
Half an hour.
Did you put into something else?
I just booted Windows.
2020,
That's
not
fine.
quite the year of Linux on the desktop then, right?
No,
Not there yet.
no. Or browsers or computers in general, I think.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for your persistence and working through that. Do you want to give a little introduction to yourself and then we'll get started?
Yes. Hello, I'm Heinz. I can't deal with audio and video on Linux. Obviously, I'm sorry. At the other two, I work on Tremor and have quite the fun doing that when the audio and video is working. Sorry.
It's all good. You're here now. We can relax, we can have some fun and introduce our audience to Tremor. And what I like about it is it's written in Rust, so we get to do some Rusty things as well.
Yes.
Okay, so we've already had a quick overview of what Tremor is. Do we maybe want to cement that with a couple of use cases that maybe either you're using it for yourself or you've got other customers that are using it for? I don't know, customers and open source users? I'm not sure what the best word is, but
Customers.
customers, exactly, yeah.
Customers.
So what?
Well, I think customers isn't the wrong word necessarily. They don't pay in money, but they pay in contributions and feedback and all those things.
Maybe
Customers is fine.
adopters is the right word, because they've adopted
Adopters, yeah.
it kind of like
Adopters,
a
yeah.
puppy, but not just for Christmas.
So Tremor is then the pandemic puppy for event processing.
It certainly is for our good friends Mariano and Javier at Instadex.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about some of their use cases? I think they'll be sharing those more publicly soon.
Hopefully, yeah. Basically they use it mostly for ingesting data, so getting data from systems, from software that sends logs, from files, pull them into Tremor, use that to do a bit of pre-processing and clean up, normalization, all the funny things which lets you you can do when you process the data, put them in a unified format, and then, send it off.
Yeah, what's interesting about the Instadex usage is they have a whole low-code development environment designed around the needs of analysts and people who work with data. They have a zero-code environment, so it's very drag and drop and interactive, and you can easily compose working data solutions, monitoring dashboards and other high-quality kind of visuals.
It's a
So
fairly
you can
cool
kind of
tool.
mix and match and pull data together, and then a lot of the connectivity then is built on top of Tremor, which is a low-code environment, and that low-code environment is built on top of Rust, which isn't either of these things. It's definitely a very, very low-level experience, as we have come to learn and love.
Yeah. Well, fun.
Awesome.
So and what's common to all those, to most cases, is that Tremor is a really kind of not 100% transparent, but a really fast and really minimal man in the middle of and doing some ETL. But it's fast. It's not batching. It's really, so if you want to have some hop in between to control your data flow, this is where Tremor shines currently.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to introduce our audience today into how they can begin to contribute to the Tremor project. Would you like me to share my screen? Would you like to share your screen? How would you like to handle this today?
Let's share your screen, since my screen is a Windows I wasn't prepared to work on.
I think that'll be funnier. No?
Well, you could, but then you would see the Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign I'm playing with my players, and that would be a spoiler, wouldn't be?
All right, not a problem. So let's pop over here. I have the Tremor website here, which is looking nice and refreshed. So if you want to learn more about Tremor...
Yes, this went live yesterday. We have an amazing mentee through the Linux Foundation mentorship program, Sharon, Big Wave. Sharon redesigned our entire web design and delivery experience based on Docusaurus, came up with the design for the new website, all of the framework elements, and ported in all of our old content. So Sharon became our newest maintainer yesterday. We hope it's easier to navigate than the 3 websites we had before that it replaced.
Yeah, you were on the old website. We did the stream, what was it, half a year ago?
Yeah, it was the beginning of this year, I think it was.
Yeah. something like that. And yeah, it's all, well, the content isn't all new yet, but the design is all new, the structure is all new. The CNCF was kind enough to do a docs assessment too. So we now
big
have a nice
thanks to
backlog
Celeste
of
the
all
Linux
the crimes
Foundation
we
and
committed.
the tech writers over there.
Yeah. Hello, Celeste.
All right. Well, I've also got the repository here. So one of the things we like
Yeah.
to do on lgtm is kind of give people a high-level overview or code walkthrough of what they can expect when they come to the project. I picked the Tremor runtime, which I believe is
Yeah.
the main repository in the
It's
organization.
our main repository, yeah. And nearly all the code lives there. So we don't use a full mono repository setup. We have a kind of in between where it made sense to us, where all the code that isn't primarily built to share lives in a shared repository, which is the Tremor runtime where you look at. And with shared, I mean reused outside of Tremor. And then we have a few crates which we felt are so general that, well, we pull them out and put them into their own repository, so it's easier for people to contribute to them should they wish to. And contributing to Tremor, starting at Tremor runtime is the perfect place. If you scroll through it, you will see a few starting point repositories, and they usually start with Tremor minus something. The API for API functions, the CLI for the command line interface, common for common tools, Erl for our Erlang code because we are horrible old people writing esoteric languages, Influx for Influx, the Influx line protocol, pipeline for all the pipeline code, which kind of underpins most of the communication going from in Tremor start to end. The big one, Tremor script, where a lot of, well, all of the logic really lives when it comes to writing scripts or pipelines or queries. Pipelines is overloaded word. Tremor value, which is the abstraction of the value model we have. Basically, how the data that you get in Tremor is then represented in memory and how you can access it, manipulate it, and all the fun things. And source, which, well, covers all the rest, the glue code.
Perfect. All right. So when people come to here, they've got access to these different sub projects within the main repository where they can begin to contribute. Are any of them easier from a perspective of someone new to the project to get involved with than others? Like, would they dive straight into Tremor script, or does it maybe make a lot of sense to start at the CLI or something?
Well, the CLI is very high level. It really depends on the starting point of the user. If you've written a programming language before, Tremor script is a wonderful place to start. If you haven't done programming languages before, well, that might be a bit tricky. The source directory itself holds the most balanced set of code, I would say, because it is the glue code where a lot of the logic lives. CLI is a lot of boilerplate, I would say. So probably easy to contribute, but not the most fun or exciting one. Well, at least for me. I mean, some people might
I
really
guess it
like
depends
it.
on your interest. If you're interested in command line interfacing and command
Then
line
that's the right one.
usability,
Yep.
then Tremor Cloud would be great. If you're interested in programming languages, then
Tremor
Tremor
script.
Value, Tremor Script, or Pipeline
Yep.
would be great.
And who are we directing to Tremor Erlang?
All of them. Everyone.
Yes, everyone.
All right. Okay. And what about, I mean, I'm assuming there are no code contributions available in the Tremor. Would that be the documentation repository? Is there anything else?
There's Tremor www, which is the documentation repository. Then there is, so for people who like design, who like tech writing, who like, we learned a new word yesterday, information architecture, the day before yesterday. That would be Tremor www. It were spread out in 3 repositories before, but one of the feedbacks we got from the Writers Guild on the tech docs assessment was, please put it into one place. That's super confusing. And it's right. We should have put it into one place. It was super confusing. It's much nicer now.
It's very obvious when an expert points it out.
Yeah.
And you go, oh no, we didn't. Oh, we did. We did create 3 websites on 3 domains when one would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
That is never.
Well,
So-
I'm going to ignore you all for 5 seconds, so please forgive me.
Yes.
But the chat is telling us that Heinz has brought his audio problems to the stream. But it's not Heinz, it's now all of the audio. So you've managed to bring your Linux issues to the Matrix.
Nice. Did you all not have a good virus scanner?
Oh, good. I'm getting an advert when I'm trying to watch our stream. Thank you, Twitch. I'll check on that in a second then. Okay, so Tremor WW is available there as an option to contribute to documentation. We've covered the higher level repositories within the main repository of Tremor runtime.
Another non-code option to contribute to, which is all the operational stuff. That lives in packaging mostly and a bit in Docker. So if you love building containers and optimizing them and making them awesome, there is the whole Docker thing. If you like RPMs and Debian packages, there's packaging. If you know how to compile with Moozle, please help us! Because we still can't get that running. There's CI stuff in the .github part, so yeah.
Thank you. Now, what would be a good way for people to find an issue to begin contributing to? Assuming that they're not using it already, or they're not using it extensively enough that they've got bugs or features that they want to bring to the project, but they just want a casual, meandering way to find something to work on. Do you have any useful labels or anything like that people should be aware of?
Yes, multiple ones, depending on what you're looking for. So one thing is we try to take part in all CNCF mentorship programs that are around. So if it's time for that, look on the CNCF mentorship website. There's probably a Tremor project or two advertised there, in which we then can donate a considerate amount of time in helping mentoring in that. The second thing is issues. We have the very common good first issue label, which is the first place to look if you want to contribute something new. Yeah.
Nice.
That would be the nice one. In, what is it, aubergine?
Maybe more of a lavender?
Lavender, yeah, lavender. I can live with
Between
that.
lavender and eggplant.
Yeah, let's just focus on the important stuff today. What color are your labels?
Yes.
But no, I think
we have spent a lot of time with documentation and design. I'm pretty sure, for example, Sharon could tell us what the proper color is.
yeah, I'm enjoying the complexity assignment too. That gives people an idea of maybe how long the issue may take to get contributed to. I think that's always
And
really
the
useful
size.
for people. So yeah, very cool.
These are the two other labels which are relevant when you feel like perhaps, okay, I'm a bit of a starting contributor. I don't want to take a good first issue anymore. I want to have something beefier. You can look for issues with a size small or complexity low. Or both.
Oh, is there a car crash somewhere? No? I don't know if that was my window or someone else.
It's a Hochzeit, wedding. They make noise when they do. I mute myself.
Oh, it's all good. Okay, so I have already conveniently cloned the Tremor runtime repository to my local machine.
Awesome.
I don't really know where to start. We've got all these subfolders. I don't know if I have to work from them directly. Is there tooling at the top level? Why don't you give me a little bit of guidance about how we build this project then?
Yeah. So since it's a Rust project, if you have Rust installed and perhaps CMake, and this can be found in our documentation, what exactly you need, but I think your laptop is set up already. It is as simple as cargo build.
And what's the CMake for?
All. The what?
What's the CMake used for?
We do depend on external libraries, namely librdkafka, which builds with CMake.
Got it. Okay. So cargo build -- all, is this using something like cargo workspaces or something to tell it that there's all these different components, we want to build them all, etc.?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
See, I know stuff.
So,
Yes.
awesome.
I mean, I'm now typing cargo build all on my machine, which is also streaming and running Chrome, and VS Code. So, I mean, what's the worst that could happen here? But
Well, we'll spend the rest of the time here waiting for this to build, because Tremor builds slowly, given it is 799 crates.
Yeah, I probably should have preempted that with a wee pre-build. However, we'll let that
That's
churn
okay.
away in the background just now.
It's fine. We'll go through it rather quickly. It's a dev build. Probably a good laptop.
Well, I hope so. I guess the important thing here is if you have worked with a Rust project before, the tooling is all going to feel very natural, and you're not going against the grain too much. You're just, like you said, cargo build, nice and easy.
Yeah.
So let's leave that there.
Yeah, it was more complicated at the very beginning, but we tried to minimize the dependencies to, well, what is really needed. And we do ship with a dev container, so if you're in a system where you don't know where to start and use VS Code, it will ask you, hey, there's a dev container. Do you want to use that?
Yeah, I've tried.
I don't know what a dev container is, but you do know what a Docker is. We have prepared Docker images that are tracking the latest release or the latest and greatest and unreleased code that we have on the main branch. So there are many ways to get started that don't require interacting with cargo.
Yeah, I don't know if it is just my Mac, but I can't really open Docker at the same time as I'm streaming. Like, I just end up getting infinite beach balls. So let's not do the dev container.
Yeah, let's not do the dev container. Yes.
Nice that it is there and available for people, particularly if you don't have any of this tool chains available. You know, that can all be provided for you.
Or are on Windows.
Exactly. I don't know why you were so scared to share your screen on Windows. I'm sure we could have breezed through it. However, so we've kind of covered this. Do you have anything that you would like us to work on today, or should I just start modifying random bits of code to go through the process?
We actually thought about something. So we stole an issue from the good first issue list, and removed the label, so that we don't run into the situation that someone steals it and goes to work on it, and we are left here without a issue to work on. And we have obviously cheated and prepared the solution in our minds. So that we are not like, well, how do we do this now? So if you go to issue 1212, yeah, it's one of the newer ones.
Okay, so streams with the same name can be created. That sounds like a problem.
That is a problem.
It is.
So maybe you want to give us a bit of detail then. How did you work this out? What is the issue, and how are we going to try and fix it today?
Yeah, so stream are named pipes with which you can connect different select statements or different operators in a Tremor pipeline. And this is all nice and fun as long as you give your stream good names. With complexity, you get into the point where you might have 10 streams and 1,000 lines of code. Hopefully you'll never get there. That might happen. Now, if you are in line 578 and name your stream, for example, error, because you want to capture an error, and forgot that on line 100 you already named the stream error, then Tremor will let you do that. And now you have two streams, which in your mind are different, but in Tremor's mind, since you gave them the same name, are the same. And you're getting data that you don't expect. And that's kind of not nice.
So this breaks one of our primary principles or goals in that it should be highly usable and it shouldn't make people think. This unfortunately forces people to think. And unfortunately, we didn't think about it, or I didn't think about it. So it is now a bug that slipped me when we crafted the first version of the query language. But it really does impact usability. Sometimes we're blind to usability issues because we mentally work around them. And we need people with fresh eyes to tell us that we're wrong. And we really should simplify it because it's confusing. And this is a great example of where we didn't do the right thing, although we tried to. And this is one excellent way to give feedback to the project is tell us we're wrong politely, and then we'll go and we'll fix it. This is a great example of a wonderful way to contribute, is to suggest a fix where something just doesn't feel right or fit right, and it's slowing you down.
All right.
I mean, in the example that Matthias posted there, it's easy to spot because it's directly below beneath each other. But imagine 1,000 lines between those statements. I know I wouldn't remember that.
No, of course not. All right, that sounds like a good issue to fix then. So let's see where we are on our great compilation journey. We are at...
You will be a hero.
We're almost there. We're 20 crates shy of this thing actually potentially releasing some CPU cycles for my machine. So.
And while that does it, we can take a short look in how we would start doing that, because the first thing we do is writing a test.
Well, I want to point out the wonderful comment from Mr. or Mrs. Hidden in the chat, who says, "Who on earth has their Explorer on the right-hand side in VS Code?"
Fair question, I must say.
I know
Very
of only
fair
one
question.
person on the internet who does this.
Yes.
To me, it's much more natural, especially when you open files and then I've got my code nicely left aligned. You know, it's a left to right language. Like I put all my junk on the right-hand side out of the way, and then just close it when I don't need it. Like, see?
I mean, junk is on the right sounds reasonable and good.
All right, that's my mission now after this episode, is to convert everyone to the way of the right-hand side sidebar on everything. Anyway, sorry to disturb you there. Where are we looking then to make this change? This feels like maybe it should be in... I don't know if I can go... am I going to guess? Common? Tremor Common?
Tremor script would be where the change goes, because it's a language change.
Aha. All right, okay. So do you want to guide me through this then?
Well, yes. Let's start with the tests. We have a folder called tests.
Why would we do that?
Well, because then you see that it fails, and then you can see that it passes. On the top level, since the tests are integration tests, and it's easier to run them all. So top level folder tests.
Oh, okay.
Not in Tremor script. You could write a Tremor script specific test, but it's kind of bunched up there, which is nice.
It's a lot harder to set up and a lot more code.
Yeah.
Whereas the integration tests are much more succinct and they're act as better test cases of communication.
Yeah. So you have this. There are folders like query, query error, query warning. It's too small for me to read, but that's just what I remember. So select statements and statements for streams are at the query level. Right? So this is the right area to look. We want to test for an error, so the folder we would be looking at would be query errors. In there, we have a nice, helpful file called new.sh, because there's a bit of boilerplate involved that we don't want people to force to rewrite over and over again. So in each of those folders, we have a new sh, which you could call with the name of the new test case you want to add. It makes the new test case and then tells you which files to edit.
Okay, so let's use your helper script then.
Yeah.
It
will save you. It will save you sanity. Also will save us sanity, because I don't think we remember how to add tests manually, since it's automated for over a year now.
I'm not enjoying the chat. Everybody is agreeing with Hidden. Rust and Sabine. The mission is doomed, left forever. It looks so wrong, doesn't it? I mean, come on.
No.
There is a good argument. I think there is a good argument for the left side to make, because if you open up a folder tree, you drill into it towards the right, and the open file is kind of drilling into the last bits, so it goes deeper.
That's why you need a double wide screen, because then it just continues on the other half of the screen.
Well, I'm going to encourage you all to try it for 30 days and then tell me if you hate it. Right, come on, Russ C. We really need you to pull through here. 3 more crates.
Could open a new tab.
Yeah, fire up a new terminal and we can...
I'm not sure I trust my machine to even handle that. It's been struggling, but let's go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were going into tests, and
Yeah.
there was a new script here.
Query errors.
Oh, query error, then new. Okay.
Yeah.
And new. Yeah.
Just put the name you want.
Okay, so we're going with duplicate stream name.
Yeah, that
Sounds
works.
wonderful.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this has created a directory called duplicate stream name with an error.txt and a query.trickle.
And in the query.trickle, so how this test framework here works is that it tries to run query.trickle and then compares the error it gets with error.txt. Since we don't have an error yet, we kind of can leave error.txt untouched.
Or we can write the error we wanted to generate.
Yeah, but there's arrows in there that's really hard to do. So usually we make it error first and then check if the error is what we want and
That works.
make it sensible. But you
Well,
can look at one of the other errors
Yeah,
to get a
I like
feeling how they look.
examples, so let's
Yeah.
pop one open. This is pp mod not found.
Yeah, preprocessor module not found.
Okay, so this is literally just a text that is going to be dumped onto the screen that says, "Hey, this is a bad thing." Okay.
Yeah, on the terminal, we typically on the interactive command line, you'll get syntax highlighted errors, so that it's easy to parse visually. But in the test framework, we remove the highlighting so that it's easier to assert based on the content.
Okay, and if I take a look at the query.trickle, we're just defining the script that is going to be, I guess, loaded and either, I don't know if it's compiled or if it's transpiled or if it's interpreted.
We can use the test case that's in the issue because someone has already provided a nice test case that we can use as the baseline for our fix.
Okay.
The gentleman with the cows.
Yes. All right. Still compiling. Okay, let's grab this script. And we're just going to pop this.
I do like how the gentleman with the cows added an Easter egg into the test case that we will find in a minute.
Yeah.
Really?
The comment
Really?
needs to start with a hash.
Yeah.
And
you can remove line 1, which is just we fill the script with something.
Okay, so this is a valid trickle script now.
Yep.
Well,
it creates. It is now, but it shouldn't be.
It is now, and that's the problem. We're going to fix this so that it's an invalid script.
Yeah. We'll fix it by breaking it.
Okay. So should we run this test case to make sure?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So let's check if we have finished our compile.
Not quite.
We will have a command line interface.
Once that is compiled, you just do cargo test, which for Rust users should be fairly familiar.
And will that run the entire test suite? Is there a way for me to run individual tests?
That might actually fire off another build. But now that you've run the build, we can use the Tremor command line interface to run.
It won't run the test cases.
Yes, it will.
Those tests are run via Tremor test.
Okay, so what you're saying there is that the cargo build, all we did, has built it for development purposes, but if we were to run a cargo test, it's going to recompile it with the test dependencies and take a bit of time again.
Not a bit, not a lot.
Okay.
But you can cancel it and just run cargo test. Cargo usually is pretty smart about not redoing it.
Well, with a few more rusty processes.
It won't.
I feel bad if I'm going to control C it at 797 and 799.
It's the linking phase which is taking all the
do
time.
it.
But you see, it's adding one. It's actually removing 9.
Bonus.
Got some for free. But then you also lost like 10.
Well, hopefully they're 10 small ones.
Yeah, okay there.
I mean, Rusty's performance does get better with releases, but it still is slower compared to, the Go tool chain and others. So.
Yeah,
Just something you have to live with in Rustland, isn't it?
Yeah, but on the bright side, it is pretty and colorful.
And the error messages are pretty dang good. So
yeah, they are exceptional. It's what we try to model our errors after, and we are not halfway there even, probably 10% or something like that. But it's good to have a goal like Rust.
Yes, and the great thing about Rust is when we went, oh, Rust has awesome errors, we should copy what they're doing. That was 3 years ago. And they've obviously been improving hygienic errors in Rust for 3.5 years. So as we just about got to their level of awesomeness, they just went into the next ballpark altogether. So now we need to up our game again. It's all
A lot. Yeah.
All right, well, we have 10 crates to go before our test cases begin to run.
See, we're almost there.
I know.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we could take a look at? Well, maybe take a look at the code that we think we're
You
going to
could
change.
take a look at the code, yes. So we get a head start on that. And since we cheated, we actually know which code that is.
All right, guide me, please.
So this is about the scripting language, so it lives in Tremor script. So we look in the source directory where all the source code is. And the way Tremor script works, it takes the Lexa, then puts on a grammar and generates a AST, which we call the raw AST. After that, we translate this AST into one we want to execute. And this is the place where we easiest can check for this. So if you look in the folder called AST, where the AST lives, you will see
that stands for abstract syntax tree. For
Syntax
people that are not
tree, yes.
familiar, can you just tell them what that representation is?
So in most compilers or parsers, we have a number of phases before a runnable or executable object results. So we have a lexer, which breaks up the source code into simple tokens or words. We then have a grammar or a description of the language that turns these words into rules or phrases. And then we have another phase that turns these phrases into a structure that we can interpret and process. And we, in fact, have another phase inside this that optimizes or rewrites the structure. But basically, that tree is a structure of rules that the runtime or Tremor can interpret to produce results based on the logic that the user writes. So that's the file that we're going to look at, is that version of the tree that's most suitable for the interpreter to run, where we can path.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we're in the AST directory. What do we want to take a look at next?
Since we want to look at the query code, we look at the folder query.
Oh, the folder, okay.
Folder. And there we have a file called raw. And this is what Dara just talked about. We have like a intermediate step between what the grammar spits out and what we really execute. And this is the translation between raw, which comes out of the grammar, not named after you, I'm sorry. But this is
Except
where
I stated this slightly incorrectly moments ago, and as this is live, I'm going to own up to it. Whereas we don't want to change the runtime here because it makes most sense for this fix, for this error to happen at compile time. We have all the information in front of us so that as you're trying to compile this script, we can give you a good hygienic error. So we're going to be changing the raw AST before we optimize it for execution rather than the runtime one. There are other types of bugs that we can only detect at runtime because they involve user supplied data. But this one, we have all the information at compile time. So the most usable thing we can do is to provide the error at compile time or when we first try and execute the script.
So that is one of the things we try, pull in the errors as early as possible so that the user that writes this gets told, hey, something doesn't work, and doesn't need to have this error when he's on a live system or she is on a live system. And you're already at the right place. You see the implementation for query raw.
Yep, right there.
And there we have a function called upscript, where we are still looking for better names. It basically updates up the script from the raw to the non-raw version. If someone has a suggestion how to call that doesn't overlap with something that already is named, please let us know. We'll appreciate it a lot. But for now, it's called up. And if you look through it, in line 58, we iterate through all the statements. So it's self.stmts, self statements. A statement in the logic of Tremor query is something that ends with a semicolon, simplified. So every line in the example we created is a statement. And this is where we can just iterate. So the solution we magically came up with over the last days while we looked at the issue, and absolutely didn't prepare this at all, was using a hash set, which is basically a set implementation in Rust, to track all the streams that already exist. Hash set uppercase H uppercase S new. Yep. You need to make it mutable because we
Going to be adding to it.
exactly we are going to add to it.
Okay, so I'm assuming in this for loop, we can
Yep.
have access to the tokens within the statement.
Yep.
Okay.
Or actually, the AST node, which is the
Okay, so yeah,
simplest thing.
the nodes. Yeah.
So we can use a nice shortcut that Rust provides, which is iflet. And we can do an iflet. And now we can match against something. And we want the raw statement, stream statement. So raw, statement raw, STMT raw. You can cheat in line 63. We match against the module statement already, so we want to match against the raw statement here. Yes, : and stream statement. Stream statement is, I think, a stream statement. Autocomplete should tell us.
Just thinking about it. Yep, stream.
Stream. Let's call it S or whatever you like.
Yep, that gives us the stream statement raw.
Exactly. Equals. And we want to look at the reference of the statement, so %E. And now we do something in the
because we
block.
don't want to consume it. We're using it later in the match on line 62.
So now comes the block. This basically is execute this block if E happens to match the... How did you do that fast? Did you also prepare? Oh, you're using Copilot. Nice.
Yeah, I don't know how to code anymore. I just let GitHub Copilot it.
This is actually fairly good, even so Copilot is wrong. Because it needs a if not stream names. Insert.
So it got it half right.
Yeah, got it half right. And we use insert instead of contains, because we want to both insert it and check for its present. The way hash set insert works, it returns true if it wasn't in there before.
Okay, so we're not going to use contains. We're going to use insert.
Insert.
Okay, and if that fails, we're going to return an error.
Yes, and we can use the generic error. So we do have a special class for errors, which gives us the ability to make very nice and complex errors. But given the time, we will take the most solution.
The simplest thing that could possibly work, and we'll do that, which is the generic error.
Generic error, which basically is print a string. But since we want to have hygienic errors, meaning errors that point to the right place in code, you need to provide generic error what this code is. And this you can do by simply, I hate this word, by pointing at the token. So if you put %s in here, it will point to the statement. Yep. And then the second one, %s again. So it's outer and inner. If we have, for example, a more complex...
If we could identify the name, which I think is s.id, we can use that as the inner, and it will narrow the error. So let's use s.id for the inner, the second argument.
Yeah, that's a good call. I like it. That's even nicer.
So what this does under the hood is these are AST nodes that have a lot of metadata that they carry with them. We know the start location, we know the offset in the file. We have a bunch of other information that you won't see in these scripts where we're processing the nodes. But when it comes to error handling, it's nice to be able to highlight with the source that the user wrote that created the error and format it exactly as it was in the source. So we use this information as part of the error handling.
s.id is a string, so that won't work here.
What
I
kind
just
of
double
string?
checked. So we save your compilation. Yeah, that's another bug. That should be an ident.
We'll raise that as a bug next because there are
Yeah.
a few places where I think
Which would be
we may
nice,
fix
but we have to do
Yeah.
%s, %s. And now you can put in the error you want to print.
I'm trying.
I like duplicated stream name as an error. That's, god damn it, Copilot Pilot is good.
It reads your mind. I've got to say.
It
I've
does
been.
what
It is.
says in the
That
thing.
is scary. So in line 64, it should be s.id, not s.name. S.name doesn't exist. .clone. Or toString, both works, does the same thing under the hood in the case it being a string.
Well, computer, you can do it.
Yeah, I think you just fixed the bug, minus any compilation errors which we overlooked now.
Yeah, this should work. This should fly.
Okay, so let's jump over here. And we got a failed test run. I guess we expected that.
Yeah,
So we can just run test again. And
Yeah.
we want to see.
it will tell us what it expected as an error, and what it got as an error. If you look quickly at line 3 of your terminal, it said expected error but got a success.
Yes.
Since when you run the tests, we had the error, the bug that the error was an error. So, and this is getting confusing, the test errored because there was no error, which for error test is an error. Ah, yes, we need to pass in the metadata. That's an easy to fix one. And wrap it in error. I think generic error needs the metadata. This is as the last argument. So this is what I talked about, that each AST node has metadata attached to it.
And in Tremor, we separate this metadata, which we don't often need at runtime. We only ever need it to do the error handling and the hygienic errors, or
separate
other
it.
kind of human file-based processing. The runtime never needs it. So we split it so that when we're executing your code, we don't need all that extra information. It's not taking up memory.
Okay.
And it's in what we call the helper.
How do I get the meta?
&helper.meta. So the helper is the helper structure, which is hopefully convoluted, but it carries along all those information like the metadata.
That's our spaghetti junction. This is one of those objects that allowed us to move fast, but it has all of our crimes encapsulated in one place. This is one particular structure that we need to actually split into multiple structures so that we can scale efficiently as a team as we grow the project and as the little domain specific languages become richer over time.
And you don't need to wrap that into another error. I believe error generic already returns a error struct.
Yes, it does. I should
Which
know.
is
I
super.
was using this the other day.
There's also err underscore generic, which doesn't return the result struct. So it's a 50-50 chance which one you use.
All right. So now we're competing with VS Code's cargo commands.
Yeah.
I think we just need a question mark so
But
we
but
consume the result and return the error, because that will return okay.
VS Code is still complaining.
The trade bound. Yes. So in the where we did it slightly different in our preparation that we absolutely didn't do is we executed this code in line 73 after updating the statement and not match against the raw statement.
Yeah.
So if you were to move the whole block 63, 67 down to line 73, well, not anymore 73, now it's 69.
Before or after 69?
Be in between technically, so both works, because we need to pull the other dot up in front of it, and this is where you see this call to up where we don't have a nice name, because right now it's a raw e is a raw statement, or other here is now a raw statement, and with calling up we turn it into a non-raw statement. So if you copy in line 73 or move the other dot up mute helper question mark, but leave the push and assign that to a variable, you can match against that variable and then call it S so all your code already, or E on all your code already works.
So you want me to assign other dot up to a variable and then use it here?
Yeah. So now we just split the logic of this in two. The one is push the statement and the other is updated from a raw statement to a non-raw statement. And then you technically this would still work if you now use F in line 72 instead of S. But the nicer one would probably be to match against F instead of E. In line 7.
Naming is hard. I think
Yes, naming is
the
hard.
confusing part here.
The E, not the F. Since we consume E when we update other. And now it will
Interestingly, single letter names are something we need to revisit. We found that, for example, with Rust, when naming lifetimes, a lot of the Rust documentation will use single letter lifetimes like A and B, and we could never remember which lives longer or which doesn't live as long, because those names didn't mean anything to us based on the semantics of the code. So we tend to use words like script or event. Obviously, the
or
script
registry.
lives longer than the event. And that to us is more usable and easier to remember and easier to forget, so that when we read it later, we immediately understand it.
Yeah.
And we should do that with the error names here as well, because S and F and E are clearly confusing us here on this session. So it's bad naming, isn't it?
Okay, we still have errors.
Yes, line 70 matches against a raw statement, but we updated the statement in line 68 from a raw to a normal statement. So if you kill the raw part of raw statement, that should look good. Does it complain, is the question.
Use the analyzer if it's still happy after 2 seconds.
It's still running. But let's try our test.
But this is a good this shows how working on Tremor looks like. So you are working with Rust C and the Rust analyzer looks like. This is just
we might still need a question mark on the error generic return line. We might need to wrap it in error.
And instead of S, use F in here.
Yeah, add that as well.
On both of them?
Yeah. That just points to the right metadata. And an ampersand in front of the string, because it can't be. But this has to do with what we pass in. This is the generic type that we pass in. So you could use a string, and you have to pass in a reference. Otherwise, there are issues with the size. Otherwise, we'll tell you, oh, this isn't sized, or this is sized. Let's cross our fingers.
Yeah, we did get sized or not sized.
Yeah, that's a common thing if you have a generic function that takes a argument that implements a certain trait. And this time it's the toString state.
Yeah.
Type. Trait. Good, my mind is broken. It uses the toString trait, and you see S toString, and you want to pass in a str, you have to pass in a ampersand str, so a pointer to or reference to this string in memory, because this, if it's a generic function, what gets passed in needs to be some kind of reference so it knows the size.
Okay.
Being a reference. Looks good.
Yes, it's one of the big advantages with Rust. Rust is so strict during development that you just avoid all of those pains and issues and sufferings in production. And it's one of the things that we've grown to love about Rust as a programming language. Is it's hard on developers while we're developing, but it's awesome to sysadmins and SREs and everyone in operations and who runs it for real in production. It's one of its greatest features.
Oh, bad me.
That's a warning. Let's see if it fails first, and then we can rename it. Otherwise, you have to wait again for 100 million years until it compiles. That's
a great
another
example of the kind of errors that inspired us to also tip the hat to Rust and go, hey, we can't do error handling better than this. Let's use that style of error handling. Look at that error. It says, convert the identifier to snake case stream underbar names. You can copy and paste that suggestion. These are so user-friendly because it means you're moving towards consistent code, and it's assisting the developer along the way. It's Rust is setting a new bar for how we interact with compilers.
And we do take advantage of that wherever possible. We enforce cargo format, cargo check, cargo clippy in pedantic mode, which is a pain at times, but it pays off by not having to argue about how to write something. You like camel case, someone else likes snake's case, then you end up arguing over a year which is better and which is worse. We just let Rust decide. We all give up and let Rust decide.
Yeah, it's wonderful. We never have any of those conversations because Rust always wins. And it frees up so much time and mental bandwidth.
Yeah. Do we ident 2, 3, or 4 spaces? I don't even know.
It's wonderful. It's so free.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel free. I don't have to worry about these things. Rust format just changes it to the way it should be, and we're done.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
New line after an if before the block or no new line? Who cares? Rust format.
And one of the wonderful things about Tremor is this takes long enough that we can go and grab a cup of tea.
But it's a good practice to batch up errors if you're doing something like that. So not cancel the build after the first error you see, but wait for it until you see all the errors, so you can patch them in or fix them in one go, and don't have to compile all the time. The alternative is get a Threadripper CPU. Those are the two options you have.
Yeah, 48 cores are really going to help.
Yep.
All right, I think we're getting there.
Yeah. And now it should just give us an error that tells us what it expected and what it got. There you go.
So we could just copy this and put this into our error.text.
Well, an easier way, instead of copying it from the output of the test framework, is to use that Tremor client to generate the error. Like if you could do Tremor debug AST, and now that it's an error, it'll spit the error out rather than printing the AST.
You can copy the full text. It's printed right above the diff.
Except that doesn't have the line numbers.
Yeah, it does. If you scroll up just a bit, there. Error :2. If you copy those 3 lines, you get the nice one. And the next trick is, if you would have run this in the shell of VS Code, you can just click on the error text to edit it. the small tricks we included there to make it as easy as possible.
Yep, save it, run it again, cross our fingers.
Might complain about a new line at the end or a missing new line at the end. Other than that, you have fixed the bug.
I think
Congratulations.
Should be good.
Yeah.
Oh no,
A
it's a
space.
space.
There is a space after error. Or one missing? I think that's one missing.
Why would you want a space there?
We don't know. Probably because we allow printing errors single line and multi-line, and we're too lazy to make an if statement for multi-line errors that it then won't add the space. That's my assumption, but I have no idea if that's true or not.
It's passed.
There you go.
Yep.
Congratulations to fixing your first bug.
Awesome. You just made Tremor's query language stricter in a wonderful and more usable way. So now we're getting there. We can see the modified code. The next thing we would probably do is to do a check that all the linting passes. So do cargo clippy minus all. Add an item to the change log and saying we fixed an issue and we increased the strictness of the query language for duplicate stream names, and it's ready for a PR.
Yeah. If you make the PR, you get a checklist of things to do.
Yeah.
Don't allow duplicate stream names.
We have DSO enabled, so you want -s.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Ugh, damn it.
But yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
All right, let's just check. That's good. Push to my fork. Okay, so let's open a pull request. And this is
You'll
issue
get a
12.12.
checklist of all the things that are expected for your pull request.
Yeah, so the CI and CD system runs a few extra checks than we typically run as developers on the command line. And sometimes when we're tired or we've had a long day or the audio didn't work, we forget these checks before we do a pull request ourselves. So all of those automated tasks will execute on the PR. Don't worry if you miss any of them. We don't worry if we miss any of them. It will catch anything that you miss, and you can just update and push again onto the PR, and eventually those tests and checks will go green, and that's pretty much.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
there is a bit of an explanation to every step. So we have the description, and for this, it's a bug fix to an existing issue, so that's fine.
Yeah, you can just reference the issue, which already describes it, saves you some typing in this case. So
then I can't be Sarky.
12.12.
Yeah, you can also make it nice. So we have an RFC process, which for larger changes, we ask people to file RFC. They live on the website too. This isn't RFC worthy because it fixes a bug. Not every bug needs an RFC, so you can just throw this out or leave it empty.
As a general rule, if we're not doing something major that really needs community buy-in, then it doesn't need an RFC. But a major change to the language, a major change to the runtime, anything that would be not binary compatible gets an RFC and goes into an open review process. So the community has time to feed it back. In our governance and in our documentation, we've said that this open review is 2 weeks. For projects that take longer than 2 weeks, we're thinking of just keeping it open for review until it gets to the point where it gets merged. So it'll just be a more open process looking forward. So that's one of the set of community and contributor guide changes that we'll be making on the website. We're reviewing these governance models to make them more open and to widen the review.
Okay, I also see there's something that's a little bit unique that I don't see in many repositories, but it seems like you require some performance benchmarks. Do you want to just tell us about that?
Yes and no. So we require performance benchmarks for changes where it's impactful, meaning it is on the hot path for an event going through the pipeline. And I hope we spelled this out in this text well enough that it would be understandable for someone, but I'll sum it up. We care a lot about performance and that Tremor is fast. So when we change something that touches the hot path, we try to run benchmarks. A first step is, well, if you make a pull request, run a benchmark. If it doesn't work on your machine or you need help, ping one of us and we will do it for you. We have a set of benchmarks you can run. There's a bench folder, there's a CLI tool which runs benchmarks. But for most pull requests, it's enough to mention either delete it and we will see it ourselves, or mention why you don't run benchmarks.
And in
If
this
I
one,
were
I don't think it even needs a mention. We're adding an error, so this is never going to get hot. So
exactly,
it
it's a
doesn't matter
compile
how
time
slow
concern.
it fails. It fails at compile time. Fails when you try and execute and deploy this code. So we don't need a performance.
We don't need it. If you
benchmark.
would want to make a very perfect, in quotes, or elaborate pull request, you would put something in. This happens during compile time, no hot code impact. If it's
And I
big
just
enough
noticed
that it's
another
not.
error. In our changelog, we have new features. It should be features.
Oh,
so we can fix that
new
along the way.
features. I didn't do it, I believe. New
It was
features. Damn it!
Nice try,
Well,
Hank.
most of the
Nice try.
typos are mine anyway.
Okay, so we're looking at the pull request process here. It's told me I should probably update the changelog.md.
yeah.
So does that go under unreleased? And then
Yes. Since you're making a pull request against main, it goes to unreleased. And if you scroll down, there's a section which is bug fixes, I believe.
And this would be a bug fix.
Yeah.
Okay.
We know some projects are super strict on
Top or bottom?
having individual PRs.
Whatever
but
you like.
If you find a few typos along the way, fix them, and we will see that you're fixing typos as well, and we'll bless them.
Yeah.
We love those little fixes. We do make those little keyboard typos and mistakes. Everyone does. So we're not super strict on those. And if you see a few and you decide to pick them off along the way, we're happy to just merge them straight through. I know some projects like all of these, like neatly separated. We're a little bit more relaxed on those little things.
What does git add -p do? I like that.
So if it's one of my favorite things. So say you make a change in this file,
Yeah.
and then you make a change in this file. I'm just going to break everything and close VS Code.
Yeah, break everything.
Oh, hey, there's that one thing we forgot to do, which is rename stream names.
Yeah. Because the CI will not let you through if you don't rename it.
Oh, well, let's let the CI fail. At least we can see that and what it looks like.
So the P will then we'll split them into chunks, which I can manually approve one at a time based on what I want to push.
Ooh, I like it. Thank you.
That is fancy. I like it.
Okay.
That is modern. That's nearly like 1990 technology or something like that.
All right. So I pushed my update. I'm going to say that I have updated the changelog.
Yep.
And then create pull request. I should just pull in that amended commit. And I have.
So there's no unsafe code in this code path. So you could say we've reasoned about it. So I would check that.
Yeah. But generally what we do, if you leave this open, something like the RFC required, if you want to check it off because you say there isn't one, you can check it off. If we see it in there in a PR that isn't requiring an RFC, we will check it off for you. But if you check it off, you get the review quicker because we see, okay, 6 out of 6 checklist items are done. So this is like...
We'll check and we'll check it off. So
you'll get your review and merge anyway.
To being kind of an accurate reflection of the submission, the faster it's going to be reviewed.
Yeah.
All right, and our tests are underway. I've signed the DCO, and I will have my first pull request in the Tremor project. Way.
Yay! Yeah. So we know that the CI will fail on this one because you got a warning and we don't allow warnings. So we can wait now until the CI fails, or we can already do the fix and be sneaky. Because if you do cargo check minus all, you will see that it's like, oh no, this is not working. Source AST
AST.
query raw.
Yeah, I'm not going to open code because I can't be
We
bothered.
can imagine that this is where we disappear, grab a coffee, come back, drink our coffee while we look at the CI status update,
Yeah.
ponder the world.
Stream name.
Yeah, it looks good.
No. Yes. Yes. I usually have an alias of get Kane, but I've broken it. I'm gonna have to type it out a long way. There we go. There. At least that will satisfy the tests. And
That will
hopefully that'll
satisfy
pass.
the tests. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank
Let's
you.
jump back over to our.
You fixed our Tremor. So what's the next ticket you're working on?
Yeah, now you're a compiler engineer. We expect.
Yeah,
expect
you're
lots
now
of
you
awesome
have been adopted
contributions.
to the Tremor team. We expect you to start Monday 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we
No,
do
you're on
need. We've
vacation.
been planning to do the compiler for a long
Yeah.
time. Maybe he can take the up and turn it into a proper intermediate form and do the low level IR, and then he can just do an x86 and ARM Neon compiler for it.
Well, I did see
Awesome.
that you were using Larlpop for the grammar, which I thought was particularly cool. Maybe we can talk about that another day, but definitely not one for today.
Yes, we are over time, aren't we? Like,
Oh yeah, I went on paternity leave 31 minutes ago, but it's all good. It was a whole lot of fun.
We have our fingers crossed, or as they say in Germany, our diamond drooped.
yeah.
All right, well, thank you all for joining me. That was great fun getting an introduction to Tremor, looking at how we can contribute to a Rust-based project, as well as no-code contributions to the website and the documentation. So hopefully people have their interest piqued. I'm sure they can reach out to you. You have a very active Discord server as well. It's listed on the tremor.rs website. So people should just come and say hello, get involved.
Yep.
Yeah, we're
Also
available
works chat.tremor.rs.
from Monday to Friday.
All right. Well, thank you again. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will hopefully speak to you all again soon.
Enjoy your paternity leave.
Thank you, David.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.